What happens when families, businesses, hatred, diversion, and evil take over a once happy and thriving town? When people are forced to move away from their homes, their land, and a lake is placed where it used to be, the land in turn becomes cursed. That is Lake Lanier. Hundreds of deaths, accidents, and strange occurrences are said to have taken place there. Yet, that doesn't stop the millions of people who gather to go swimming each year.
Hey there, Morbid Maniacs. It's time for another spooky video, a part of VLOGTOBER. And for tonight's spooky video, I'm going to be talking all about Lake Lanier. Oh my gosh. So, it is the middle of summer when I'm filming this, and as I said before, my air conditioner's messed up. And a lot of you guys were complaining that the fan was making it hard to hear me. So, I'm back here burning up for you guys. I hope you appreciate that. Located in Gainesville, Georgia, Lake Lanier is one of the largest lakes that is man-made within the state. It was in 1946 when Congress had approved the bill for the River and Harbors Act. The start of the lake was to help Atlanta have a reliable water source, and it was also to help families to keep from getting flooded by the Chattahoochee River. It was named after Sidney Lanier, who was a writer, poet, musician, and Confederate Army veteran. The construction of this lake was very controversial, however, because it was not planned out very properly. Half of the budget that they had was placed into the design and construction of the lake, and the other small percentage was left to relocate families, businesses, and churches, all of which thrived in that area where the lake was placed. During the time on which the lake was built, the U.S. government took out 50,000 acres of farmland, relocated 250 to 700 families, and 15 businesses. They also relocated 20 cemeteries in the process. This would include the thriving black community of Oscarville, many of whom were formerly enslaved residents and descendants, and many owned their own land. In 1912, two separate incidents occurred only a week apart. This would involve two white women, Ellen Grice and May Crow. Ellen had claimed that she had been woken by a black man in her bed, while May was found beaten and raped in the woods. Unfortunately, the white folks would take justice into their own hands by terrorizing black people with their own accusations. The crimes were pinned on four young black people who happened to live nearby: 16-year-old Ernest Knox and his 18-year-old cousin Oscar Daniel, 22-year-old Trussie Jane Daniel, Oscar's sister, and 24-year-old Robert Big Rob Edwards. The day after Edwards' arrest, a white mob invaded his jail cell. He was shot, dragged through the streets, and hanged from the telephone pole outside the courthouse. This would eventually lead them running the black community out of Oscarville. The whites would go door to door with torches and guns, burning down black churches and businesses, and demanding that all people of color abandon their land. Then, months later, a jury convicted Ernest Knox and Oscar Daniel for Crow's killing. Trussie's charges were dismissed. The boys were hanged while 5,000 people gathered to watch. It is widely believed that the boys were innocent of the crime, and this was all during the 1920s to 1930s. In the 1950s, it was an almost all-white community for a few more decades before Lake Lanier washed it into an underwater ghost town. The government had offered money to these families whom homes they had taken away. And these were also families who owned their own farmland. And most of these families owned their farmland and their property for many generations. Guys, I'm going to scoot you up closer because it seems like it doesn't want to focus on my face when I'm too far away. To prepare for construction and in order for the land to be filled with water, the Army Corps of Engineers demolished or moved anything they considered dangerous. They uprooted trees and hauled them away. Barns and wooden structures that could float and endanger watercraft were also moved, and bridges were relocated. However, the town of Oscarville and some of its structures were not demolished. The cemetery, which was in the community, was also flooded. The corpse would move the marked graves. However, the unclaimed people and unmarked graves were left behind. Divers would find eerie streets, walls, and houses still intact, which would make Lake Lanier one of the most dangerous underwater surfaces in the United States. Many who lived in the community would attempt to go swimming before the lake was even finished, would have their clothes snag on the tops of trees that reached the top of the water. The construction of Lake Lanier split apart communities. And Lake Lanier's tragic history can be traced all the way back to hundreds of years ago. The Forsyth County was a part of the Cherokee Nation, and in the 1830s, the U.S. government would force out any and all of its residents in what would now be known as the Trail of Tears. And it's said that Lake Lanier and the land which it now sits upon is cursed. Since its construction in the 1950s, the lake has had over 700 deaths, some of which are strange and unexplained, and others which remain unsolved. 200 of these deaths took place in 1994. Only 27 of those people who passed away, bodies were found. There have been over 500 boating accidents as well upon Lake Lanier, including mysterious instances where boats will just burst into flames. It's believed that when there are droughts in the area, all of the ferry boats, cars, bodies, and debris from the left behind towns will get closer to the boats and swimmers at the surface. There are also many freak accidents and missing persons in the area as well. The water depths are said to be very unpredictable, as one second you could be shoulder deep and the next second you could step forward and you will fall into a 30-foot drop. Divers are constantly responding to rescue and recovery calls. And it was in 1958 when Dahlia Mae Parker Young and her friend Susie Roberts were driving to Dawsonsville. And as they were driving over the Lake Lanier Bridge, Susie had lost control of the vehicle and wrecked it right into the lake. The women and the car disappeared at the bottom of the lake. It would be 31 years later before Susie and her vehicle would finally be found. And this all started when a fisherman had stumbled upon human remains. He found a decomposed, unrecognizable body which was floating by the bridge. Her body was missing both hands and 2 toes, but it was hard for them to decipher whether this was Susie or Dahlia's body. Dahlia had been wearing a blue dress the night of the accident. But it wasn't until 1990 when officials finally found Susie and her car at the bottom of the lake. They were also able to identify the body which the fishermen had came across as Dahlia Young. Many people have reported seeing a lost, handless woman in a blue dress pacing around the area. It's said that she still haunts Lake Lanier, waiting to drag someone under. People have reported disembodied hands reaching up at them in the depths of the water. Many have heard the sounds of voices calling from the waters below and church bells ringing from a sunken church. There is also said to be a shadow figure which sits on a raft holding a pole to inch himself forward, back or side to side, and holding a lantern to see. Despite the lake's various depths, people have also told stories of catfish the size of Volkswagens. While many visit to swim, paddle, fish, or jet ski across the murky water, some locals won't set a toe in Lake Lanier. Others refuse to support the racist past and troublesome history. The lake still attracts 10 million visitors every year. So that was the story of Lake Lanier. What do you guys think of this creepy story? Personally, I think the beginning of it is very sad. I don't think they should have forced residents to leave their homes, which they had already owned, much less take matters into their own hands and kill innocent people of color. I think that's wrong. I can see why the lake would have such a dark history and haunting today. Let me know what you guys think. Would you ever visit Lake Lanier for yourself and go swimming? I don't think I'd go swimming in it, but I definitely would visit there, just see if I could experience anything spooky. But let me know what you guys think, and I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, please give me a big old thumbs up. Subscribe to my channel if you have not already, and become a Morbid Maniac. Be sure to hit that bell notification, that way you get notified every single time I upload a new video. And also be sure to head on over to my second channel where I will be posting all of my vlogs, all of my other random videos. And I love you guys so much, and I will see you in the next one.